Hi, both of my regular viewers will have noticed that in the last couple of videos I posted I'm doing something a little bit different on video. So I've started using a drone, and I just wanted to say why I've decided to do that. Well, three reasons I guess. The first is boredom. I'm getting pretty bored of seeing myself on here, and if I'm getting bored I imagine that some of you are getting pretty bored of seeing me, so I wanted to find a way of changing things up a bit and making it a bit more interesting visually. The second thing is it's new technology being able to be used in a different way to solve an existing problem, and that's kind of something that's always interested in me, and this is just yet another example in a long line of things that I've gone off to go and explore to see how I can use them. And the third thing is that this particular technology presents some important challenges, I think, and I'm super interested both to be on the consumer side of some of those challenges and then onto the thinking about some of the societal issues around this technology, so I'm really looking forward to exploring those things. So let me just dig in a little tiny bit deeper. So what have we got here? Well, it's basically an aircraft, but that's not how I think about it. I think about it beyond it being an aircraft in two additional ways. The first is it's a really pretty good camera. So there's a 3-axis gimbal mounted zoom lens on the front here with pretty good optics, a nice sensor that's maybe about as good as, let's say, a decent smartphone, so it'll shoot 4K video, it'll do 120 frames a second, raw files, HDR, those kinds of things. So it's an interesting camera, but sort of perhaps even more interesting than that for me is that it's a technology platform. So you can understand this best if I turn it on. So that first noise that you can hear there is the fan spinning up to cool the computer that's running this device. So there's an awful lot of onboard heavy lifting that's taking place to be able to do subject tracking and to be able to have stable flights and for it to be able to follow particular pre-programmed trajectories. But that's coupled with a controller which is also pretty intelligent in its own right and can be used to fly this on its own, but also it's intended to have your smartphone plugged into it. So that really extends the capability of the platform because you've got some more processing power on the smartphone itself, but it's also internet connected, so you can access some of the benefits of DJI's cloud servers and cloud technologies. So this kind of end-to-end computing stack being able to be used to do some of the things that the drone can do is pretty cool and pretty interesting. So we've got the kind of photography aspect of it, we've got the technology stack aspect of it, but the final thing is really the issues that it presents. And I think there's three interesting issues. So the first is privacy. And our privacy laws kind of assume that so long as you're not trespassing on somebody's land, and so long as it's not a sensitive site like a military location, pretty much you can take pictures of whatever it is that you like. And we've seen that that's sort of starting to, I guess, push privacy in directions that the law hasn't yet anticipated with things like Google Maps satellite view. So I can go and have a look inside my neighbour's back garden using the Google Maps satellite view. Now with something like this, I can fly a 4K recording video device up to somebody's bedroom window and take a look inside. Now it's against the law, but how detectable is that? How traceable is that? I'm not sure, and I think there's potentially interesting questions there. The second point is about safety. So the drone laws that we do have are really around the fact that this is a sort of nearly kilogram weight device. It can fly up to 45 miles an hour, and if one of those hits an aircraft or hits a person or hits another vehicle, it's going to do some significant damage, and so the law exists to kind of try and put some safeguards in place around that. The law's a bit blunt, to be honest. So I live about 2.5 miles away from Cambridge Airport. I'm not allowed to step outside my back door and take the vehicle off the ground by a metre because I'm flying in restricted airspace, despite the fact that a plane's going to hit my house before it hits this drone. The other thing is that it doesn't, the law doesn't recognise the fact that this is a pretty smart device. So we've actually got 8 cameras on the sides, the bottom, the back, the front, and they're just intended to avoid objects, and they work pretty well. So compared to a sort of dumb, unsmart flying device, this one is much more safe, but the law doesn't really differentiate between those two. But the sort of the final factor, I guess, that I'm interested in is this whole question of machine learning. So we are used to Google using us to help train its algorithms in capture by identifying road signs or vehicles or traffic lights or whatever it might be. Now, the interesting thing about this is that I'm helping to develop algorithms to be able to identify people who are trying to run away so that I can chase them with my device. Now, my use cases are pretty benign. I just want this thing to hover in the air and maybe follow me, or, you know, track my kids or something like that. But there are other use cases for these devices that aren't quite so benign. So how do I feel about participating in a process that could maybe end up with some of those algorithms being used for non-benign purposes? Interesting question. But my number one challenge right now, and particularly if you saw the video that I shot outside Addenbrooke's Hospital, is sound quality. It makes a heck of a racket when it's flying, and I've taken some steps to be able to eliminate some of the background noise in software, but they really degrade the audio quality. So this is something I'm thinking about at the moment and trying to think about some workarounds. But yeah, anyway, I just wanted to set out a bit of context as to why I'm using this thing, and so that you can understand when it sort of comes back up and appears in some future videos. That's it for now. I'm Gareth, and I will see you in the next video.